Thanks so much for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham.
And I'm Charlene Israel. The Southeast is bracing for another winter storm. Substantial snow and ice are expected to cripple the region. Winter storm watches, warnings, and advisories have been posted all the way from the Texas-Mexico border to the New Jersey shoreline. The South is bracing for another blast of winter misery. The forecast across the South calls for a dangerous mix of snow and ice. In Georgia, the storm is expected to dump more snow than the 2 inches that paralyzed Atlanta 2 weeks ago. That winter storm created gridlock on interstates in Atlanta, forcing some residents to sleep in their cars, trapping thousands of students in their schools. Now forecasters predict Georgia could see the most significant ice storm in 10 to 20 years. State officials say this time they're ready. Georgia's governor declared a state of emergency ahead of the storm.
We are making every effort to be prepared for these events. And I would simply say that we should all individually use extreme caution.
Frigid temperatures and precipitation are expected to create an icy mess from northeast Texas to the Carolinas. In the Midwest, freezing rain, sleet, and snow have been causing headaches for motorists.
We're used to having the roads scraped to the pavement back east, and it's not the way they do it here.
Some parts of Virginia could pick up a foot of snow. In North Carolina, residents stocked up on food and supplies.
We sold everything we could get our hands on.
Utility crews around the country are trying to restore power to thousands of families who've been in the dark for a week. Meanwhile, wicked weather is also happening out west. Some in California are still cleaning up after heavy rains and snow triggered mudslides. And in Utah and Colorado, 2 people were killed by avalanches and heavy snow, including 21-year-old student Ashley Cox, who spent last summer helping at an orphanage in Romania. Winter storm watches are in effect for Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and Philadelphia, where at least 5 inches of snow are possible.
The Obama administration is delaying yet another part of the president's health care law. This time, it's postponing the mandate that forced medium-sized businesses to provide health care coverage to workers. The Obamacare regulation will now become effective in January of 2016 for companies with 50 to 99 employees, but it will still begin in 2015 for employers with 100 or more on their staff. This move has sparked mixed reaction from the business community. Republicans say it's proof Democrats don't think they can survive politically if Obamacare is allowed to take effect.
Democrats have begun efforts to prevent an Obamacare election disaster. With this election year underway, they face a tough battle trying to convince the country the law isn't a disaster for millions of people who were happy with their old insurance. And as John Waggy explains, our senators are running into trouble with the numbers.
The Senate's second highest ranking Democrat is under fire after saying Obamacare added millions of new Americans to the health care rolls.
10 million Americans have health insurance today who would not have had it without the Affordable Care Act. 10 million. And we can also say this, it is going to reduce the deficit more than we thought it would. We are seeing a decline in the growth of the cost of health care, exactly our goal in passing this original legislation.
But Monday's Washington Post fact-checker labeled the foundation of Durbin's remarks ridiculous, saying the vast majority of enrollees were previously insured. Republicans were quick to counter Durbin's optimistic claims.
Well, I can tell you that Senator Durbin can spin this all he wants, but I hear it from my constituents. They've been writing me concerned about higher health care costs, losing their plans with their doctor, and also just concerns about a disastrous rollout, gross incompetence.
Democrats say that when Americans see the law at work, voter fears will subside.
What we are going to see, we think, is that first of all, costs are much less than we had predicted them to be. So it's actually costing us less. Healthcare costs have been driven down. There's now more health facilities available in our community. People are using emergency rooms less. All that's going to be positive on our economy.
But if it's not positive or voters don't think it's positive, Democrats run the risk of facing a single-issue tsunami in November's congressional elections. Republicans need to gain 6 seats to take control of the Senate.
In almost every case, the numbers that we're now looking at, whether it's the cost of insurance, the people that are uninsured, or the people that just simply aren't working full-time, is a bigger number and a harder to deal with number than anybody who voted for this law thought it would be. I didn't vote for it. I don't think it has the capacity to work, but all the numbers as they come out exceed the bad news that had been anticipated.
For now, Democrats hope the exemptions granted to businesses and some individuals will help put off much of the debate for the next election. John Waggy, CBN News.
It has been 4.5 years since the recession officially ended, but tens of millions of Americans are still out of work. Many think they don't have hope of finding a job anytime soon. 2 straight week reports of unemployment haven't made things look any better. Analysts say longer-term issues are hurting the economy, like baby boomers retiring. Others think the U.S. will eventually find a way to overcome its problems. Many conservatives warn about heavy regulations out of Washington hurting businesses as well, along with Obamacare hurting the job market.
Battles over same-sex marriage are building across the U.S. In Congress, Republican Raul Labrador has introduced a bill to protect believers in traditional marriage. The Marriage and Religious Freedom Act would block the federal government from punishing religious Americans who believe in traditional marriage and sexual morality. Meanwhile, Nevada's Attorney General says the state will not uphold a constitutional ban on gay marriage that voters passed back in 2002. 8 same-sex couples sued the state, arguing the law is unconstitutional. In Utah and Oklahoma, various religious organizations are coming together to urge a federal court to uphold bans on same-sex marriage in both states. They say accusations that their opposition to gay marriage represents bigotry are false and offensive.
In Arizona, after 3 years, a man is finally convicted for killing a Border Patrol agent along the U.S. border. A judge sentenced Manuel Osorio to 30 years in prison for the murder of Agent Brian Terry during a confrontation along the border in 2010. Osorio was part of a group of illegal immigrants accused of entering the U.S. to rob drug traffickers.
We do not celebrate this sentence today, but we acknowledge justice.
Guns from the scene were traced to the botched gun smuggling operation known as Fast and Furious. Osorio was the only one arrested that night. 2 remain fugitives, and the U.S. is still trying to extradite 2 other suspects in Mexican custody. Upon completing his sentence, Osorio will be deported to Mexico and never allowed back into the United States.
Iranians are celebrating the 35th anniversary of Islamic Revolution today. Hundreds of thousands of Iranians are rallying in Tehran, shouting the same old chants of down with the U.S. and death to Israel. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has blasted Iran for sending warships close to America's shores. Netanyahu says the move shows that easing sanctions on Iran hasn't stopped its aggression. The Iranian fleet consists of a destroyer and a supply ship. The ships carry some 30 Navy Academy cadets for training along with regular crews. Iran considers the move a response to the U.S. Navy's deployment near its own coastlines.
Coming up, losing religious liberty, why freedom is fading across Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. We've heard a lot of talk about possible terrorist attacks at the Olympics. How credible, though, is the threat in Sochi, Russia? Congressman Michael McCall of Texas says it is real. He says the greatest threat is the location. He's concerned because it's in the middle of a historic battleground between Russia and Islamist Chechen rebels.
The eyes of the world are upon these Olympics, and the Chechen extremists know this, and they want to make a global statement. They want to make a jihad statement, and what better time to do it than right now? And that is, I think, the biggest threat to these Olympics. And remember, they don't have to hit in the Ring of Steel at the Olympic Village. As long as they hit somewhere in Russia, to them, that's a victory.
McCall believes there's a strong possibility a bomb will detonate outside the security perimeter and Olympic Village.
Representatives from all over the former Soviet Union gathered on Capitol Hill recently. They're worried about what's happening to religious liberty in their region. Paul Strand reports.
Representatives from all over the former Soviet Union gathered on Capitol Hill to bemoan what's happening to religious liberty in that Eurasian region.
Some thought once the yoke of communism and atheism was thrown off the former USSR, religious believers there could flourish in freedom. Sadly, the truth is, government continues to persecute and punish believers in much of the ex-Soviet Union.
The head of the Russian-American Institute opened this briefing and talked to CBN News about the dire realities in Russia where it appears Vladimir Putin is set on cracking down after years when it looked like he was on the side of religious liberty.
We call it Putin 1 and Putin 2. When Putin first came to power, he was a positive influence. But after his second term, he began to roll back a lot of the religious freedom issues, human rights issues, assembly. It's been a very difficult direction that we're going in right now.
Dr. Mikhail Cherenkov was also pessimistic as he looked at the lack of liberty across the many former Soviet states.
We have new restrictions from government and also from society. I mean Islamic society and Orthodox, nominal Orthodox society. So this is new challenges for evangelical church and for civil society as well.
Dr. Birnbaum was quick to point out with the immensity of the former USSR, it's really hard to generalize. But he said what he's seeing across Eurasia is not very hopeful.
I mean, these leaders in these Asian republics are copying the Russian model, eliminating opposition, eliminating the free press, eliminating the right for opposition candidates to form political parties. So it makes it very, very difficult.
Lawmakers stopped by to wish these Eurasian religious leaders well, including one of Congress's lead fighters for religious freedoms internationally.
I just want you to know my heart is with you, and I don't think you could be doing a greater work. Religious freedom is the foundation of all human freedom.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
A Moroccan court has overturned the conviction of a Christian accused of proselytizing. According to Morning Star News, an appeals court dismissed the case against 31-year-old Mohammed El Baladi because of lack of evidence. Police arrested El Baladi last August and accused him of shaking the faith of two Muslim teenage boys. He received a 30-month prison sentence but was released on bail a month later. El Baladi claimed an estranged uncle had set him up for the arrest. The case against him will be officially closed February 13th.
Up next, he's one of the most influential Baltimore Ravens, yet he can't walk, talk, or breathe on his own. How O.J. Brigance is trusting God through his battle with ALS.
Iconic child movie star Shirley Temple Black has died. She was 85. The dimpled, curly-haired Shirley Temple sang, danced, and grinned her way into the hearts of a Depression-era moviegoers. The young entertainer was as adorable as she was talented. That turned her into America's top box office draw from 1935 to 1938, a record no other child star has come near. Later in life, she became a U.S. diplomat and was married to the same man for 55 years. She died Monday, surrounded by family in San Francisco.
Christian music artist Carmen says he is cancer-free. He shared the good news on Facebook, telling friends and fans that it appears the rare form of cancer he was fighting is now gone. He wrote, "They took tests and could find no trace of cancer. That's amazing." He thanked his fans for their support and prayers, saying, "You all have been there, the best friends, brothers and sisters, and prayer warriors I could ever hope for in this life." Carmen says he is still healing, but will also be working on the release of his new album.
Another well-known name in Christian music, Darlene Zech, updated fans on her battle with cancer. On her most recent blog, she wrote she is finished round 1 of 5 chemo treatments, and all she can say is grace, grace, and more grace. She went on to say, through this, she is learning to rest in every promise from Jesus. She told fans it is his word that is strengthening her. She also says writing has been a great comfort to her and plans to share songs birthed from this trial.
Back in 2000, linebacker O.J. Brigance joined the Baltimore Ravens and went on to play in Super Bowl 35. 7 years later, this storied athlete was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yet when the Ravens won the Super Bowl in 2013, O.J. was on the field again, encouraging and inspiring the team. Sean Brown brings us this astounding story.
This is O.J. Brigance. He can't walk, talk, or breathe on his own. And yet, as the Baltimore Ravens senior advisor to player development, he is one of the most influential people in the Ravens organization.
O.J. Brigance is my living guardian angel. It's as simple as I can put it for him. He's sent from God. Anybody in his situation probably would have gave up a long time ago.
In 2007, O.J. was diagnosed with ALS. commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It destroys the neurons in the brain that control motor function. But that never stopped O.J. Running back Ray Rice remembers how O.J. inspired the team last season during their Super Bowl run.
Well, O.J.'s messages were always on point, and on point meaning whatever he said was right there in the moment and was right on time.
Before ALS, O.J. was a warrior on the gridiron for 13 years. By communicating through his computer, he spoke about his fascination with the game.
I learned to love the game of football at a tender age. I used to watch it obsessively and was thrilled when I got the chance to play in Little League. The sport gave me greater confidence and discipline. Besides that, with a name like OJ at the pinnacle of the other OJ's success, it was probably fate that I would play the game.
O.J.'s parents raised him with strong Christian values, but he didn't fully accept Christ for himself until his second year at Rice University.
A church mother at Brentwood Baptist Church cornered me one day after services. She was known for winning souls for Christ. She asked me to commit my life to Christ, and I did so that day.
After spending 4 years at Rice, O.J.'s dream of playing pro football was shattered.
I was disappointed when I didn't get drafted. Deep down in my spirit, I knew that I could play professionally. I just needed the opportunity.
Even though the NFL showed no interest, the Canadian Football League did. O.J. would spend the next 5 years in the CFL making a name for himself. NFL scouts started to take notice, but still no offers. Then Shanda suggested he call the teams himself.
What prompted you to tell him that?
The Holy Spirit did. I mean, that's the only place it could have come from, because when I began to understand that this is what he needed to do, to share this with him and tell him and encourage him to go ahead, this was his time.
O.J. started calling teams and finally signed with the Miami Dolphins. After 4 seasons, O.J. landed with the Baltimore Ravens, where he helped the team win Super Bowl 35, a feat that made him the only player to win a Super Bowl and a Grey Cup for the same city. After a stint with the St. Louis Rams and the New England Patriots, O.J. retired from football in 2002. 5 years later, he received news that he had ALS.
Were you angry? How did you feel?
I wasn't angry because I didn't fully grasp the weight of everything. When I did realize there was no cure, I broke down and cried. After I dried my tears, I received the revelation that God was still here and had us in his hands.
What has your faith in the Lord meant to you throughout this journey?
Our faith in Jesus Christ has allowed us to achieve a higher perspective of our earthly circumstances. Proverbs 24:10 says, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. To stand in the midst of this adversity, we have been in training under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Life has prepared us for this moment, and if it weren't so, God would have never allowed it to happen.
Even though he can't talk, he still has a voice. Through speeches, working with his foundation, the Brigance Brigade, and writing. He even authored a book entitled Strength of a Champion. So as long as his heart beats, O.J. will continue to inspire his team and everyone around him.
It is so inspiring to see where he was and, the hand that he's been dealt and just how he perseveres.
I'm sure O.J. will tell you, if you go back in the Bible and you know some principles, you go back to the verse where it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. O.J.'s really living that.
He says that I'm strength for him, he's strength for me, because I still depend on him. I still need him.
Hello, my queen.
This is a voyage of 3, not just 2. And as long as we have God in the center, everything around it will come together.
People with ALS are generally given 3 to 5 years to live. O.J. is in year 6, and the battle continues.
God has only given us a finite amount of time to complete our assignment, and there will always be stumbling blocks. The key is to recognize those stumbling blocks as opportunities for growth and advancement, not as a deterrence or hindrance. I pray my legacy as I trusted God and made the most of what He entrusted to me while I had it. I hope my life has been a testimonial that with God all things are possible. There is still more to be done in me, but I thank Jesus I am still in the process.
Finally, today you can find some pretty amazing things on social media after they go viral. In this case, a stirring tribute to our nation.
A woman posted the video you're about to see here on a Facebook page, and it was shared from there more than 170,000 times. Take a look and listen. You're listening to the Kentucky AllState Choir singing the Star-Spangled Banner from their hotel balconies. They were attending a choir conference in Louisville when the late-night concert was caught on video. It's something they did each night of the conference, amazing those at the hotel with their talent. More than 600,000 people have viewed it on YouTube as well. It is very stirring, moving.
I'm gonna have to go find it.
Yeah, it is so moving, beautiful.
Wow, beautiful voices.
Indeed.
Well, that's going to do it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
Take the time and tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a terrific Tuesday, everybody.